It's 00 GMT. That's 2 a.m. in Gaza and Israel, where a seventh exchange of captives and prisoners has now taken place. Right now, 30 Palestinian prisoners in the occupied West Bank are set to be reunited with their families. These are live pictures from Ramallah, where all of that is taking place. Earlier, buses with Red Cross staff went into Offa prison to collect them. And a short while ago, Hamas handed a further 6 captives to the Red Cross. They've now crossed into Egypt on their way to Israel and are now, we understand, on Israeli soil. Earlier, released 2 women to the ICRC in Palestine Square in Gaza City. Well, in a moment, we'll speak to Hamda Salhout. She's in occupied East Jerusalem. But first, let's go to Nida Ibrahim, who's in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. And Nida, bring us up to speed on what's happening there in Ramallah in anticipation of the arrival of these latest Palestinian detainees.
As we've been seeing, Palestinians have went down the hill to kind of see the bus as it makes its way towards Ramallah and the Ramallah municipality, where the reception is expected to be holding place. And also we've been seeing cars stopping in front of the bus, trying to celebrate, trying to give those prisoners a hero's welcome. Now, in the occupied West Bank and in Ramallah, where we are, we're talking about 18 Palestinian prisoners who are minors, who are just, again, the youngest hasn't turned 14 and the oldest one is 19. And we are talking about them making their way here. The rest are expected to be going to occupied East Jerusalem. And we have Palestinians who have Israeli passports, women who have been released as part of the 30 prisoners whose names have come out in the list today. We're expecting the 7th batch to arrive in Ramallah shortly, and we've been seeing and speaking to difficult testimonies from worried mothers saying that they cannot wait to see their sons, to take them for medical checkups, to have an embrace. And it's been getting more and more difficult on those mothers and those families, because not only are they being prevented from visitation, but also we're talking to mothers who have 2 sons in jails, or 3 sons, or 4 in one case. As the mother of Abdullah al-Bawshi says, that I have 4 sons in Israeli jails and my husband as well. That's what she was telling us. So you can imagine that because the Israeli forces have been raiding the Palestinian cities left, right and center, detaining more than 3,200 Palestinians just since October the 7th, you can imagine the toll that is taking on Palestinians, their mental health, and increasing their worries about the cases of and the health situation of those prisoners. So it is still a waiting game, but we can confirm that at least they've been released, at least they've made it to the occupied West Bank. Yes, as we've heard there, they've been tear-gassed by the Israeli forces that have raided Bitunia, but at least they made it back to the occupied West Bank, and they're waiting until they hug their families.
Nida, some viewers watching what has happened over the past week or so may be confused by the sheer number of young people who are being released, some of them very young. Give us an understanding of why so many children are in Israeli detention.
Well, all of those men, or at least boys, the teenage boys who have been released as part of those 7 days, have been detained before October the 7th. Some of the women have been detained after, but we're talking about an arrest campaign that targets minors that has been happening already before the war. And we've had mothers who were telling us that their sons have been spending more than 17 months in Israeli jails, where they are going between one prison to another to visit them. So we are talking about Israel, which is a state that controls the occupied West Bank, controls the lives of Palestinians. Every single and small detail of Palestinians' lives is under Israel's control. So as an occupying power, as it enforces a military rule against Palestinians, they detain and prosecute minors in military courts across Israel and in the occupied West Bank as well. And also, it's worth mentioning that since Israel has settlers in the occupied West Bank who live in illegal Israeli settlements, those settlers are tried in civil courts, while Palestinians living in the same territory are being prosecuted in military courts. Some people would tell you that this is part of an intimidation and instilling fear and control in a young population. We're talking about Palestinian society, which is a society of youth. A majority of them are young, as per the latest statistics that have been released by the Palestinians. So you can imagine the sense of defiance these children have. Also, you can imagine the lives that they were born into, not only as refugees, some of them living in refugee camps, but also as people who are seeing the Israeli occupation cementing itself, killing more Palestinians. So you can imagine how Palestinians are feeling and how they're suffering from the ongoing occupation.
Right, Nida, thanks for that. We'll be back to you, of course, as soon as those coaches start to get a little bit closer. But let's